Hi everyone, welcome to Sunny Day Discussions. I am Sunny Day. So we all know about the crisis at the border, and I know I've covered it a bit before, but the Supreme Court actually sided with Biden, saying that, Texas had to get rid of the razor wire that they had put up because it was inhumane. It was killing people. Well, Texas has decided that they're going to ignore the orders of the Supreme Court. Greg Abbott is essentially claiming that they are at war with the migrants and that this is an invasion, and that is the justification for them ignoring federal authority. Unfortunately for Texas, a state cannot declare war. A declaration of war has to come from the federal government, so in itself, this action is unconstitutional. There's this thing called the Supremacy Clause, and that is this Constitution and the laws of the U.S. shall be made in pursuance thereof, made or which shall be made under the authority of the U.S. shall be the supreme law of the land. And the judges in every state shall be bound thereby, anything in the Constitution or law of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. No state shall, without the consent of Congress, lay any duty of tonnage, keep troops or ships of war in time of peace, enter into any agreement or compact with another state or with a foreign power, or engage in war unless actually invaded or in some such imminent danger. Now, the immigrants are not coming over armed to the teeth. They're not coming over with the intent to take over Texas or to take over the United States. That's not what they're there for. They're there because they're escaping danger and trauma and life-threatening matters from their home countries. They're coming here in the hopes that they get a better chance at life. And this has gone on for a long time. Yeah, it's hitting peaks right now. But like I said, we have not had comprehensive immigration reform since the 80s. And that lays on Congress's backs. They're the ones who have neglected this area that has become such a critical point. And Republicans have a pattern that emerges at every election cycle, particularly the presidential election. There's crickets about the southern border, maybe on the local level, but it's not this national crisis. But then comes the election cycle, and all of a sudden, we're being invaded. It's a national security issue where it's a crisis. And yes, it is a crisis, and it's a humanitarian crisis, and we definitely need some work down there. But it only seems to matter to Republicans when an election comes around. Because when they're in power, they do nothing to fix the problem. So, for instance, Trump's first 2 years in office, he had the House, the Senate, and the White House. So he had the trifecta of control. They didn't do anything. He was talking on the campaign trail about building the wall. He didn't even mention building the wall until he had lost control of the House and the Senate. And then that gave him free rein to bitch about how only Republicans can fix the border because the Democrats are standing in our way, because the Democrats wouldn't give him trillions of dollars of funding for the wall. So when they're in office, the crisis abates, and it just becomes kind of a side issue. But then election time rolls around, and again, we're all of a sudden immersed in the depths of crisis. Then we actually have Biden introduced immigration reform on day one in office, but of course it was rejected. We have had such a small majority that it was basically dead on arrival. Well, now the Senate, Republicans and Democrats have been working together to come up with this deal. And it was almost reached. It was a $14 billion more in funding, more immigration judges, more Border Patrol agents, more technology to aid in detecting fentanyl and other drugs, and funding to build more border wall. And then Biden even put in there that he put in there that a president can have emergency authority to shut down the border if there's more than 5,000 crossings or attempted crossings a day or something like that. And he even said that as soon as this bill hits his desk and he signs it, he will shut down that border. But Trump does not want that to happen. He does not want the border to be shut down, because then he wouldn't have anything to run on. And that's what he wants to run on, is the border, and that only he can fix it. And of course, so he's telling his sycophants in Congress, sabotage this deal. We don't want to reach this. But what it's doing is it's showing the true colors of the Republican Party, that they don't really care about what's going on at the border. They don't want to fix it. They want to bitch. They want to use it to say, see, look how bad the Democrats are at this. Only we can fix it. And then if they get into power again, they'll do shit. Nothing to get it done, to fix it, to help it in any way, shape, or form. And so if the border crisis is extreme, as Republicans seem to say it is, as Texas seems to say it is, so extreme that he's willing to ignore federal authority, why wouldn't they be signing this bill? Why wouldn't they vote to pass this bill? It's because it's not as extreme as they're claiming it is. Yes, it's a problem. It's a huge problem. It's a crisis. But this is a step in the right direction. It's one of the most comprehensive bills ever put forth since, like I said, for decades. But they don't want to do anything about it because they don't want to give Biden a win. And I know I've told you before that there's congressmen who have said that they literally are not going to sign this because they don't want to give Biden a win. And so it proves that Republicans are selfish. And it's not about the issues that they want to fix. It's about retaining their power and control, or what they perceive as their power and control. And obviously, they're not confident that where they stand now is going to be successful for them in 2024, because they don't want to give Biden even a hint of a win. And so it just shows that they're selfish. They don't really care about the constituents. They don't like America. They don't like our Constitution. They want everything that America stands for. They want the opposite. They are all kind of a walking example of the Dunning-Kruger effect. And for those of you that don't know, to put it crudely, it's people who are stupid, being so stupid that they think they're smart. And that seems to be the case, because they just keep walking into failures, which I don't have a problem with at this point. Keep doing it. Go ahead. But they keep walking into failures. They keep bragging about Roe v. Wade being overturned, or at least Trump does. Yet it's wildly unpopular, and one of the primary reasons that they've lost every election since Dobbs. So these Republicans are so against helping at the border that they actually, in Oklahoma, they passed a resolution condemning their Senator, James Lankford, because apparently he was doing his job. And he was working with the Democrats, and they were coming up with this bipartisan agreement to help at the border. But they just don't care. They don't want to. Their whole ideology is hate and fear and discrimination and racism, misogyny, all of those words. Now, not only is the GOP sitting on their asses doing nothing about the border and actively fighting against anything that helps at the border. They are ramping up their attacks on the LGBTQ plus community because in just January of this year, there have already been 381 bills put forth. Not all of these are going to pass. I get that. But the fact that they're even being put forth to be put to a vote or something like that, and it does nothing but damage members of the LGBTQ plus community. Obviously, that's their goal, is they want to legislate them out of existence or legislate them back into hiding so that they can be comfortable. And so some of the examples of the legislation that they're trying to put forward is barriers to accurate ID. These bills would limit the ability to update the gender of anybody on their IDs, their records. It puts transgender people at risk of losing jobs, facing harassment, and other harms. Accurate IDs are needed for travel, for job applications, and if your ID doesn't match your appearance or who you say you are, there's a problem there. They're basically limiting free speech of the transgender community or of the LGBTQ plus community and drag queens, because they are trying to they're wanting to ban drag shows for one thing, despite the First Amendment. They're trying to pass bans on drag shows, prohibit or censor such performances or like performances. They are going so far as to limit public expression of LGBTQ plus identity, as well as access to books talking about the LGBTQ plus issues or just referencing someone who's LGBTQ plus. So basically what they're saying is that if you have a couple, take my sister and her wife, for instance, if they held hands in public, that would be against the law. How is that anything but bigotry and hatred and fear of what they don't understand? They're, of course, still trying with the healthcare restrictions, banning transgender care in youth and adults. They're public accommodation bans, like bathroom bans, that's still trying to happen. Even bills that get shot down, they're bringing them back up with different wording. They're restricting student and educator rights, basically curriculum censorship. They're forcing outing in schools. So if a kid trusts their teacher and they come forward and tell this teacher that they're having these issues, that they don't feel like they're in the body they're supposed to be in, and that they can't tell their parents at home because they don't feel comfortable with that, the teacher then, by law, would have to tell their parents and out them, subjecting that child to possible abuse, being being expelled from their house, getting kicked out onto the streets, homelessness, a whole world of issues, instead of just being that one person that child can talk to and could possibly help save a life. So they want to weaken the civil rights laws surrounding the LGBTQ plus youth by having a redefinition of sex bill, meaning it's an attempt to exclude trans and non-binary people from protection under the law by embracing definitions of man and woman that are solely about reproductive capacity. Religious exemptions, allowing employers, businesses, and hospitals to turn away LGBTQ plus people or refuse them equal treatment. So by their bitching that they're being discriminated against, these people who don't like the LGBTQ plus community, and saying that they're being discriminated against, so they're fighting so that they can discriminate in turn against someone else. It makes no sense. They're also wanting to include bans on marriage, gay marriage. So again, they're still just wanting to get rid of an entire section of people, an entire grouping of people, because they don't like them, trying to enforce their will on the rest of us. Now, another atrocity that Republicans have accomplished, unfortunately, was the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Now, there was a study that was done. It was overturned in 2022. 9 states have banned abortion without exception. 5 others have exceptions for rape, but only in the very early stages of pregnancy and after the crime was reported to the police. So there was a study published in the Journal of American Medical Association. Researchers used government data on sexual violence to calculate that there has been 64,000 rape-related pregnancies in jurisdictions with bans, abortion bans. 26,000 of those are from Texas alone. So everything I have gone over today thus far has shown that Republicans really just don't give a shit about anybody but themselves. And themselves being only straight, cis, white Christians. The log cabin Republicans, I don't know how they can even exist and say they are supportive of the party. Anyone of color, a woman, I don't see how anyone could be okay with the Republican Party as it is today. They despise everything that our government, our country stands for. They hate immigration. Well, I guess that's not true. They hate the wrong kind of immigration. So if you're from Europe and you're white, cool. But if you're brown, they don't like that. They rail against big government. You know, Democrats want big government, we want small government, yet they want government in people's crotches. They want government in people's bedrooms, in people's marriages, in people's doctor's offices. So don't pull that small government bullshit. It's not flying. We all know what you're up to. They want to make us a Christian nation, even though there is a separation of church and state. And I've heard people say, yeah, but that's not actually, that text isn't in the Constitution. No, it's not. But different wordage is. And it specifically states that Congress shall make no laws, because of a specific religion. They are refusing the facts of the 14th Amendment in regards to Trump. They are like, yeah, but he hasn't been convicted. The wording of it doesn't say convicted. It says engaged in. They want to ban drag shows. That's the First Amendment. They want to ban media that they don't like. They claim cancel culture. They scream cancel culture when people use their own First Amendment right to call out their bigotry and their hatred. And they're screaming, oh, I'm being canceled. So they're just a group of people. The politicians have a thirst for power. And they know that they can manipulate their base because their base is scared. And their base is scared because the politicians made them that way. And it's a vicious cycle, and it's going to keep going until we can vote these people out, eliminate the current Republican Party as it is. We need more than a two-party system. We don't need maggots and the way they are now. We need serious parties that are here to govern and here for the people. Democrats, corporate Democrats, they're not really there for the people either. They're there for the corporations and their donors. We need to vote in down ballot progressives. The more progressives we vote in down ballot, the more pressure they'll put on people above them to become more progressive. And then more people who are progressive will become Congress members. And then maybe we can actually make this government be for the people again, instead of for the donors. So that's everything I have for you today. Sorry, it's kind of a long one. It was a big rant. There was a lot to cover. Vote. No matter how big, how small, how inconsequential the election is, your vote matters, and read everything you can get your hands on. Like, share, subscribe, and I will see you next time.